Copilot can scan basically all of your organization's information and then pull up insights for you, answer questions. But what that means for companies with lax permissions is sometimes Copilot was surfacing things like salary data or the CEO's emails. So we're hearing of some customers pausing their deployments for them to fix this issue.
To us, you should think of Copilot as the UI for AI. If you start with this idea that this rich agentic world ultimately does need to meet us, and we need to meet it, that means you need a UI interface. These agents are really grounded in a rich set of data sources, starting with, in fact, the most important database in most organizations is the database that contains all your office information, right?
Every Copilot pilot is stuck in pilot. The financial analysts have said it, the Microsoft partners have said it, the industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester and those guys have said it, the press has said it, and customers have said it. And instead of getting a summary of an analysis or a report that was done by some research teams, what this trader saw was employee names, social security numbers, account numbers, and 401k positions of dozens, if not hundreds of employees in the bank, and they immediately turned it off. They said, this is a privacy nightmare.
Introducing super high-powered AI into your enterprise comes with risks, right? Now, I was thinking, how do I illustrate this the best? And I'm going to use Microsoft Copilot because some of the early implementations of Microsoft Copilot have been stopped. So I'll show you some stats on that, but I think of 132 CIOs interviewed by Gartner, 40% of them had said they paused implementations of Microsoft Copilot due to kind of privacy and security concerns. And so when I started researching this, I started seeing publications like Business Insider starting to talk about issues that companies were having with Copilot, how they thought it'd been released too early, maybe. And let's take a look at what Business Insider said.
Microsoft is betting big on AI and spending billions to create generative AI tools like Copilot. The people who are working on the tools, though, told me there's a big gap right now between what the company envisions and what customers are actually experiencing. I'm Ashley Stewart, and I cover tech for Business Insider from Seattle. So for this story, we reviewed internal emails and documents. We got a payroll spreadsheet where employees were sharing their salaries. We interviewed 15 Microsoft insiders, plus their customers and competitors. Here's what we found. Customers like some of the features, like summarizing meetings and email threads. Some of the features they're not as excited about. In July, we heard about a CIO of a pharmaceuticals company saying that the company was no longer going to use Copilot. Basically, he compared the tool's ability to generate PowerPoints to basically creating middle school presentations. We've also heard about sort of a security issue, and that issue is more with how customers have set up permissions for their internal systems. Copilot can scan basically all of your organization's information and then pull up insights for you, answer questions. But what that means for companies with lax permissions is sometimes Copilot was surfacing things like salary data or the CEO's emails, things that companies really don't want the average employee to be able to access. So we're hearing of some customers pausing their deployments for them to fix this issue. The problem is the issue can take years to fix because of how these things work.
So that's Business Insider running a story, and you have to put a big kind of stamp of allegedly on the kind of what they're saying here, don't you? Because they're not naming names, they're not interviewing end customers, it's kind of sources. But fair enough. And the point is, if you've been in technology sales or outsourcing sales, which I've been my entire career, when didn't you encounter problems on implementing new technology, especially new enterprise software within your company? And when could you, if it all went kind of wrong or haywire or the business outcomes weren't getting delivered, when could you really peg the blame on the technology or the software? Or was it the process? Or was it your lack of governance? Or was it the program delivery? Was it the integration with lines of business and technology and lines of business not being joined up? That's where the issues predominantly are with delivery of large-scale technology programs, is they don't integrate with business process. Now, I don't think that's going to be any different with AI, but I think the issues are going to be different with AI because they're going to be much more public. And so you've got a bunch of your people that work for your company, right? If you're a big enterprise, they might even not like you as a company. They might be trying to leave. They'll do anything they can to harm you. And if you arm them with a prompting engine they're going to use it in kind of nefarious ways, right? So I started seeing all of this about coming out about from Business Insider and then other publications about oversharing, about privacy concerns, security concerns with Microsoft Copilot. But it is Microsoft's kind of big bet, isn't it? So let's hear Satya Nadella. And I thought this is quite timely, actually, because Satya was just over here in London, a couple of months back now, kind of launching the big vision. And the big vision is agentic AI, so AI agents. And that's Microsoft's giant AI play. And so I think they're going to get this really, really good, but maybe they've got some teething problems. But let's hear from Satya. It is really, really interesting what they're doing.
And so that's our goal, that's our mission, to empower every person in every organization right here in the UK to achieve more, whether it's small businesses becoming more productive, large multinationals right here becoming much more competitive globally, public sector becoming more efficient, health outcomes, education outcomes. So that's really what this is all about. Now, to us, to achieve that, we're building 3 platforms. The first is Copilot. To us, you should think of Copilot as the UI for AI. That's the simplest way I think about it. We then have the Copilot and AI stack, so to be able to, for you to build your own AIs and AI agents and Copilots, we have a full stack. And then lastly, this new set of devices, which are these Copilot devices. And so I want to talk about each of these platforms, starting with Copilot. Now, as I said, if you start with this idea that this rich agentic world ultimately does need to meet us, and we need to meet it, that means you need a UI interface, right? Just like the PC or the phone was the user interface, or the apps on a phone or a PC were the interface to essentially digital technology, these Copilots and Copilot is the UI for all of this AI, right? Even in a world where there are a lot of agents that are working autonomously, they do need to raise exceptions, get permissions from us. And the question is, how does that happen? It happens through this new organizing layer for how, in particular, work gets done. In fact, work artifact, and workflow is going to change. A great example of this is just a month ago, we launched something called Pages. Just like, say, back in the day in the 90s, we launched Excel or Word, which were basically editors to create new artifacts. Pages is the first, I would say, user experience to create new AI-first artifacts, right? I can search the web or my work for retrieving information, and then I can put it into Pages, and it's a document that I can then share across the organization, and I can work with AI and humans. In fact, I sort of say the metaphor I use is I think with AI and work with my colleagues at work, right?
All right, let's pause that there, and I will put the link in. Do go watch the whole keynote there by Satya. Right, what did he say there? You think with AI, and then you collaborate with your team. And he also used one word that stands out for me there, and it's workflow. Now, if you're in technology, sales, or consulting, and there's a dependency on the customer having a really well organized workflow within their business, that's complicated, and that can be very difficult to achieve, especially if you've got lots of siloed data all over the place. It's not organized, right? You're like, if you started say you started a company from scratch today, you could get everything nicely organized. We have one system, we have one CRM, we have one repository for data, we have one repository for all our really sensitive payroll HR data. We have another super secure repository for our mergers and acquisitions data, because if that gets out, that's a big threat to the company. And we have this nice software security layer across the whole of our new company. So in that situation, yeah, go release Copilot or any agentic AI and set up your guardrails, set up your permissions, and you're going to be just fine. Now, that's starting a new company. Well, the big enterprise companies who've been around for years don't have that luxury, do they? They have multiple systems. They've probably bought multiple companies that have been kind of part integrated, and we've still got all these different systems. I've worked with lots of big companies over my time in sales, and they don't even know how many people they employ or what this payroll is, because they've got so many different businesses. And if you look at companies like Unilever, when I was working with them, they had 800 different businesses because the whole company's grown on a strategy of mergers and acquisitions. That's how they've scaled across the globe. And so in that scenario, what Satya is talking about is that you prompt the Copilot and it goes off and finds information from externally from the web, and then it goes off and finds lots of information from internally within your business. Well, what information is out there in your business that you may not have put a guardrail around? And of course, this is the big problem when we go from taking really smart technologies to actually real world implementations. Now, the next video I want to play to you is from Field CTO. Let me just get this queued up here. At Varonis, Brian Vecci, and he's being interviewed on theCUBE. Again, I'll put the link in the excuse me, in the show notes. Let's hear from Brian, because he's talking about, again, anecdotally, he's not naming the names, but he's talking about his experiences of a investment bank implementing Microsoft Copilot. Let's hear from Brian.
Presumably, every hour of time that you can save a trader is something that it's time that's extraordinarily productive. So you want to pilot Copilot. You want to see what it can do. Will it really make these people much more productive? Because we've got, and this is the bank, decades of research and analysis that if we can somehow harness all of that data for our traders, boy, this is going to be an incredible productivity gain and an incredible profitability gain for the bank. So they gave it to these traders, and one of them did something I think is really smart. This is a big bank. We hire smart people. What stocks do our employees invest in? Like, if you knew that, surely somebody wrote a report about this at some point. Surely Copilot can go out, find it, summarize it, and give me some information. And instead of getting a summary of an analysis or a report that was done by some research teams, what this trader saw was employee names, social security numbers, account numbers, and 401k positions of dozens, if not hundreds of employees in the bank. And they immediately turned it off. They said, this is a privacy nightmare. We're going to get sued out of business if we keep doing this. And it wasn't because this trader was suddenly an insider threat. It wasn't because Copilot gave them access to some secret data that they didn't already have access to. It's because somebody had done an analysis, created a spreadsheet, saved it in a team site, shared the team site with a distribution list, and it turned out a group inside that distribution list had the group everyone except external users. So everybody in the bank had access to this data. Nobody knew about it until you gave them the greatest information retrieval tool ever created. So the reason that stat makes so much sense, and the reason I completely agree with it, is enterprises are really struggling to know, if we start giving people this capability, is it going to surface risks that we don't know about? Is source code or employee data or credentials or private keys or information like intellectual property or information about M&A activity, is that going to suddenly get surfaced when people start prompting, whether they're doing it on purpose or not? So those are the conversations we're seeing people have, and it all comes back to governance, privacy, and security.
And there you go. Governance, privacy, and security. And so that's Brian Vecci there from Varonis talking about a real instance where, and he says it, doesn't he? He says he's not criticizing the technology. He said he called Microsoft Copilot the greatest, tool that has ever been created for finding information. So he's not blaming the technology; he's blaming the implementation. And so if we're on the supply side, and maybe you're selling Microsoft licenses, maybe you've got professional services around Microsoft within your organization, I'm saying to you, call to action, contact your customer about this. And if you want something to show them, and maybe you've got that access to this within your organization, if you want some, what we've just been hearing is kind of Microsoft talking, anecdotal evidence from Business Insider and from Brian there about, hey, these are some of the things we're hearing. But if you want some actual evidence from Gartner, I found this for you. So let me put this on my screen share here. This is 132 IT leaders interviewed in October 2024, so it's pretty recent, and they were asked these questions. So let's go from the top, and take this data and ask your customer, do you know about this, and do you want any help from us? Can we help you avoid some of these issues? Bring some value to your customer, because it's not just about getting the sale, it's about implementation and achieving the business outcomes and avoiding risks. That's what we're here for if we're on the supply side in sales, right? So look, enhances employee satisfaction, 92%. Yeah, I'm seeing that across the board. People just talking to me just day to day when we're chatting, that they're loving the way that Copilot can summarize meetings, and it is very good. And just general kind of like ability to go into different systems and find information across the enterprise. So employee satisfaction is good. Rollout requires significant effort from management. Yes, of course it does. Yeah, adoption and implementation of AI is, I think, it's got to be driven top down from CEO down, and have that governance. And the governance, again, I keep saying it, governance when it comes to AI especially is the human oversight of the AI. That's what governance means. So you get a board together and you find the fastest way to get to the productivity gains whilst keeping your company safe. Does it need more forward-thinking people on that board, more creative people? Yes, of course it does. Otherwise, the company would do nothing, and then they fall behind in terms of market share, right? But governance is important. Employees struggle to integrate into their daily routines. Yes, when was that ever not an issue, right? And then we go to engagement declines quickly. Yeah, half of the people being interviewed, consultants said that. And then rollout delayed due to security concerns. So you got 40% of 132 IT leaders saying that they delayed it to security concerns. Yeah, you kind of have to say good, well done for delaying. And I think it's delay but not stop. You've got to, as your competitors implement this technology, you've got to stay with the pack, right? Because the ones that get it right, the companies that get this right and implement AI, take the productivity gains, they will be the ones that win. I'm absolutely certain of that. So of course security is an issue. And look, if Microsoft Copilot is hackable and particularly attractive for hackers, then that's a major problem. And again, if you're on the supply side, talk to your customer about how they're protecting their data. What's the security strategy for protecting data when implementing AI tools such as Copilot? And again, it's going to be lots of different tools. You can have SAP agents, you name it, there's going to be an AI agent for it. So they're all going to need extra protection in terms of security. Final one was provides significant value to the organization, 3%. It's, yeah, I think that's because it's early. On Business Insider, they talked about the and again, anecdotally, CIO of a pharma company saying, it creates presentations that are like kindergarten level. And I think that's because it's early. It's going to get better and better. So if I was running a company, for sure, I'd be looking at, hey, where can I introduce Copilot and start testing it, but in a non-threatening way to my organization? If I just turn my back on it and say, hey, we're not getting the productivity gains, let's switch off the, I don't know, $30 a month per user or whatever Microsoft are charging for this, then I think that's short-sighted, because the AI technology is just going to get better and better. And Microsoft have also listened, and they've introduced a whole bunch of new security updates and tools to kind of put guardrails around the deployments of Copilot. And I believe Copilot Vision is with us now. So that's actually a vision-based Copilot that can see things that are on your screen. So maybe we'll do a little video on that. So let's go back to Microsoft's keynote, because after Satya was speaking, he introduces Jared Spataro, who's the Chief Marketing Officer over at Microsoft. And Jared gives an actual demo of what McKinsey, the big top-end consultancy company, how they're using Copilot. So let's take a look at that.
Thank you, Satya. I'm sure many of us are familiar with McKinsey & Company, one of the most successful management consulting firms on the planet. Now, for McKinsey, client experience is literally everything, and they're always working hard to ensure that they're streamlining and improving every touch point with their clients. So imagine our delight when they agreed to partner with us to use Copilot Studio to create an autonomous agent to streamline a portion of that client experience. Let's take a look. It all starts with an incoming email from a prospective client, much like you see on the screen right here. Now, previously, they had people on the back end essentially receiving these emails, parsing through them, and figuring out what to do next. Who should it be routed to? What expertise did they have in the firm? But this is where the autonomous agent comes in. Now, an email comes in, and the agent springs into action. What you see here is that it will begin to parse out the email, moving through the ambiguity of human language to, for instance, find out what the engagement's about, to check the engagement history, to also map it to their industry standard terms, and then finally to try and find the right person to take the next step within the firm. With all of this information in hand, the agent then goes about writing an email that takes all of this information and summarizes it for the receiving partner. And what you see on the screen is exactly that. In comes a whole bunch of human-written email. The agent processes it, summarizes it, and sends it to the right partner in the firm to take that very next step. Now, it's worth pausing for just a moment here to reflect on what you're seeing. It happens so fast, you might miss it. But essentially, this agent has been given a loose set of instructions, kind of like you would to a human, and it deals with all of the messiness of human communication, figuring out what the right next touch point is for the customer. Now, this is magic, but it's only half of the magic, because now we're going to go behind the scenes to see how easy it is to actually create an agent just like this. For this, we will move over into Copilot Studio. Here you see that we have programmed up with McKinsey the agent, but not using a sophisticated programming language, instead using natural language, the same way that you would tell a colleague to get ready to do this task. You also see that what makes this agent autonomous is that we can set what's called a trigger. In this case, the trigger is set to watch an email address and to react immediately when an email comes in. But in fact, you can set it to look for events across a whole wide range of systems, sitting there working for you 24/7, waiting for an event to come that gets it going. You also, just like a regular human colleague, add knowledge. Here we see a Word document, a SharePoint site, and a database about engagements. But of course, you can add additional knowledge sources. That includes line of business systems like SAP or ServiceNow, or even databases. And finally, to finish up what you give this agent to do its work, you give it a set of actions. And we saw those in the flow. These are actions that include things like pulling out the relevant information or summarizing what a human has written. All of this together makes the agent powerful because it can deal, again, with all of that ambiguity that a human throws at it. Now, what?
Okay, let's stop that demo there from Jared, CMO over at Microsoft, and yeah, you could see, couldn't you, that the agent is being created to do a very narrow task. So, incoming emails, just random emails to McKinsey. The AI agent kind of tries to understand those, what the ask is from those emails, and then get it across to the right partner within the firm with a draft response. So the human is still involved. And we saw that with Octopus Energy on the last episode, didn't we? That although they're running their large language model, the human, and that's drafting a suggested response, the human is still involved in that process. But you could also see the way you could give Copilot access to different databases like SAP, Oracle was in there. So different sources of information. And so it just seems to me that if you set this up in a really kind of targeted way, you're going to be okay, and you're going to get phenomenal productivity gains from using Copilot or any AI agent. But again, if you got a complex organization, that is hard. That's really hard to do. What was just demonstrated over there at McKinsey, and obviously McKinsey have a lot of money to spend on consultants to do this stuff for them. So yeah, but really great example there from Microsoft. So let's close out there. And I think the call to action, if you are in sales, if you sell software, if you sell Microsoft, if you sell consultancy, contact your customers. They are going to be implementing AI agents. That is what is going to happen. There is just, you wait. We're already seeing the wave of these agents. Google have just released, I think, Mariner. There's all sorts of agents now coming out. So every company is going to implement these. Massive opportunity for anybody in sales and consultancy, but there's also massive risk. And let's help our customers extract the productivity and the customer services gains from this technology, but let's keep them safe along the way and help them get to the benefit, the business outcome much quicker, but much more safely, and not have to pause their rollouts, right? So thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode, and I hope you found these real world AI kind of stories, customers, data points. They're going to be valuable for you to replay in your conversations with your customers. So, but to stay up to date with the latest insights, please hit the subscribe button. Got lots of people returning to view now, which is great because I've not done that many episodes, but please hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. Leave me a comment. What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? Hey, maybe you want to come on the podcast. Let me know. But stay up to date. And just hit that subscribe button, and I shall see you on the next episode. But keep helping your customers deliver value from AI, but in a much risk reduced environment.